Millionaire followed her black gardener. What he discovered changed everything. "David, empty your pockets now." Patricia Harrington's voice was a cold blade. The 62-year-old tech mogul blocked the kitchen exit of her gardener of 8 months, David Thompson, 35, a black man. He turned slowly, his eyes calm, not panicked. "Problem, Ms. Harrington?" he asked, his voice firm. "My husband's vintage watch is missing, worth over $25,000. You were the only one in his study today." She crossed her arms, letting the accusation hang. Patricia had built her empire on intimidating people like David. She'd fired dozens of black employees over similar accusations, always quietly. David nodded, calmly folding a dish towel. "And you thought of me. Interesting." "Don't make this hard," Patricia condescended. "I know things are tight with your parent. Maybe you just got confused." David then did the unexpected. He smiled, not submissively, but with the look of someone whose suspicions were confirmed. "Miss Harrington," he said, pulling out his phone, "before I empty my pockets, how about we call the police? I'm sure they'd love to investigate a $25,000 theft." Patricia hesitated. David's confidence didn't fit her script. For 8 months, he'd observed her contempt, her phone calls about lazy people and petty crime. "Not necessary if you cooperate." "Oh, but I insist," David interrupted. He was no longer speaking like a gardener. "I have some very interesting things to show the officers." His phone vibrated. He glanced, his smile widening. "Ah, perfect timing," he murmured. "Visitors earlier than expected tonight." Confused, Patricia watched David empty his pockets, keys, mints, a tissue, nothing else. "Satisfied?" he asked. The doorbell rang, then again and again. It echoed like a warning. "I'm sorry, Miss Harrington," David said, walking confidently to the door. "But I have a feeling our conversation is just getting started." Patricia stood, realizing she'd completely underestimated him. His every step was calculated. Voices came from the hall. How many people had David let in? And, with her keys? "Miss Harrington," David's voice echoed with unfamiliar authority. "Join us in the living room. We have a lot to talk about." For the first time in decades, Patricia was not in control. David was orchestrating everything with unnerving precision. Patricia followed David into the living room. 3 black men sat on her sofa. A woman in a suit organized papers. "What the hell is going on?" Patricia exploded. "David, who are these people?" "Not my house, Miss Harrington," David said calmly. "These are Mr. Miller, Mr. Davies, and Mr. Green, all former gardeners you accused of theft. Mr. Green's stolen coin later turned up in your son's desk." Patricia felt the blood drain. She vaguely remembered the men. All fired, shamed, their reputations destroyed. "And this," David pointed to the woman, "is Dr. Evelyn Thorne, an attorney specializing in employment rights and racial discrimination." Dr. Thorne stood. Patricia ignored her outstretched hand. "Mr. Harrington, for 8 months, my client, David Thompson, has meticulously documented your pattern of racial discrimination and false accusations against black gardeners." "That's ridiculous," Patricia shouted, red-faced. "I have every right to protect my property. If things go missing and these people have access, it's obvious." David cut her off, his voice laced with fury. "That black men are naturally thieves? That we don't deserve the benefit of the doubt? That our families, our characters are automatically suspect?" Mr. Miller, in his 60s, spoke. "You accused me of stealing a laptop, said I was typical of my people. I lost my job, my reference, almost my home. You found that laptop a week later, didn't you? Under magazines in the study." "But you never called me," Miller continued. "Never apologized. Never tried to make amends." David looked out at the garden. For 8 months, he'd been a silent investigator. A journalism graduate from London School of Economics, he'd lost his newspaper job investigating discrimination among London's elite. Financially devastated, he took the gardening job, only to find Patricia Harrington was exactly who he used to expose. "The first thing that caught my attention, Ms. Harrington." David turned, his eyes flashing. "Hearing you on the phone with your lawyer, laughing about how easy it was to get rid of the colored help when you needed a scapegoat." Patricia swallowed hard. She remembered that call. Or when you told your accountant that mysterious losses were an excuse for layoffs to keep those people away from respectable families. Dr. Thorne spread documents. David had recorded conversations, photographed evidence, collected statements. We have records of at least 15 black gardeners fired for false theft accusations in your Surrey properties over 5 years. You can't prove anything, Patricia said, her voice weak. Actually, we can, David smiled, taking out his phone. Like that conversation 3 weeks ago. Telling your husband you'd found a particularly suspicious black man to blame for the next incident. David's phone played Patricia's unmistakable voice. This David seems perfect. He looks like he'd steal if he had the chance. When we need a scapegoat, he'll be perfect. Those people always have a reason for money. The silence was deafening. Patricia saw her arrogance and prejudice reflected in the men's determined faces. My husband's watch, she whispered, still clinging to control, is still missing. You can't deny that. David walked to the grandfather clock, pulling the vintage watch from behind a panel. It gleamed, reflecting Patricia's shock. Exactly where your husband left it. David said calmly. He forgot it. I found it this morning, but decided to wait and see how far your racist imagination would take you. Patricia's legs felt weak. She had so completely underestimated him. Now, facing David's steely gaze and the mounting evidence, she realized she'd fallen into her own trap, built by years of prejudice. Every humiliation fueled David, a silent strength against injustice. She didn't know the woman she'd chosen as victim was the most dangerous person she could have crossed. You don't understand who you're dealing with, Patricia said, regaining some arrogance, grabbing her phone. I have lawyers, contacts, police chiefs who owe me favors. You think you can barge in and threaten me? David watched as Patricia dialed. He knew who she was calling. Jeremy, it's me, Pat. Harrington. Come immediately. Absurd accusations here. Patricia listened, her face turning from red to pallid. What? You can't represent me? We've been friends 20 years, Jeremy. Conflict of interest? What does that mean? Dr. Thorne smiled discreetly. My office formally represents Mr. Thompson and the other men. Any attorney taking your case now faces serious ethical issues. Patricia tried 3 more calls. All the same, embarrassed apologies, conflicts of interest. In 15 minutes, the woman who commanded doors to open was isolated. How did you do this? She asked, desperate. David ran his fingers over her rare books. Ms. Harrington, for 8 months, I didn't just tend your garden. I studied you. Every phone call, every name, every favor. He pulled small digital recorders from shelves. You make your most compromising calls in the study, Tuesday afternoons while I'm trimming hedges. He placed them on the coffee table. 8 months of you bragging about manipulating city contracts, bribing council members, using inside info for tech speculation. Mr. Green spoke up. He came to me 6 months ago. Said he knew I was innocent, had a plan. A gardener taking down a millionaire? I thought he was crazy. But David's not just a gardener. Dr. Thorne added. He's an investigative journalist, a London School of Economics graduate. He lost his job exposing corruption, like yours. Patricia felt the floor vanish. She'd treated an investigative journalist like a mere gardener, speaking freely about her schemes to the one person capable of destroying her. The gardening job, David continued, was just a cover. I needed direct access to your life, your conversations, your habits, and you gave it to me. On a silver platter, because you couldn't see past the color of my skin and the uniform I wore. He showed his phone. 15, 0 people are watching this live on Instagram. Every word you said about colored help is being shared in real time. Viewers soared, comments demanded justice. My followers, David explained, are journalists, activists. They know an important story. Patricia lunged for the phone. Dr. Thorne blocked her. Ms. Harrington, interfering with our documentation is witness intimidation. You destroyed my reputation, Patricia screamed, composure gone. 20 years of building my name, my businesses, ruined in one afternoon. No, David replied with brutal serenity. You destroyed your own reputation with years of racism, discrimination, and cruelty. We merely documented and exposed who you really are. Mr. Miller took an envelope from his pocket. David helped me file a lawsuit. Wrongful termination, emotional distress, racial discrimination. With his evidence, it's a sure thing. We're all suing, Mr. Davies added. David helped us understand our rights, connected us with lawyers, documented evidence we didn't know existed. Patricia looked around her room. She'd lost control. David had meticulously orchestrated her downfall, using her arrogance against her. Her phone vibrated, partners questioning videos, reporters calling, stock plummeting. Harrington Tech is getting calls, David observed. 3 big contracts canceled. Funny how quickly people distance themselves. Patricia finally understood. David's confidence in the kitchen wasn't spontaneous. It was the final moment of a months-long plan, executed with precision. As comments multiplied and her reputation crumbled, one question haunted her. What else did David know? "Stop this broadcast," Patricia screamed, lunging. Dr. Thorne blocked her as viewers surpassed 30-0. David watched. He knew what was next. "You don't understand," Patricia yelled, face red. "I am Patricia Harrington. I built half this city." "You are? You are what?" David's voice cut like a knife. "Troublesome black men who don't know their place. Go on, Miss Harrington. 35-0 people are listening." Patricia's phone vibrated wildly. TV stations, emergency meetings, plummeting stock. "David," she pleaded, "we can work this out. How much do you want? $50,000? $100,000? The silence was deafening. The other men shook their heads. "She still doesn't get it," Mr. Miller muttered. David pulled a thick folder from his bag. "Miss Harrington, for 8 months, I've documented not just your racist conversations, but your full schemes. Want to see?" He spread photos. Her handing envelopes to council members, falsified environmental documents, fraudulent contracts. "How did you get these pictures?" she whispered, horrified. "Remember when I told you I needed to work weekends for my parents' medical bills?" David smiled coldly. "My parent is fine. On weekends, I followed you to your confidential meetings." Dr. Thorne opened another file. "We have bank records of irregular payments, recordings of you promising council seats for favors, and evidence you overcharged for 15 public projects in 3 years." Patricia slumped into an armchair. "You've been investigating me? You pretended to be a gardener to destroy me." "Not to destroy you," David corrected, taunting. "To expose you. The difference is subtle." His phone rang. He answered, on speaker. "David, Sarah Green, London Chronicle, cover story on racial discrimination among London's elite. Interview?" "Sure, Sarah, lots of material." More calls. BBC, The Guardian, Sky News. Desperation grew in Patricia's eyes. "The irony?" David continued calmly. "If you'd treated me with basic dignity, none of this would have happened. I was just doing my job, but you couldn't see past my skin color. The live broadcast hit 50-0 viewers. Comments flowed. Justice. Disgusting woman. David is a hero." Patricia tried one last desperate card. "I'll sue you all for defamation, invasion of privacy, conspiracy." "With what lawyers?" Dr. Thorne asked sarcastically. Her 5 usual firms already declined due to conflicts of interest. "And with what money?" David added, "Between our lawsuits, criminal investigations, and investor flight, Harrington Tech will be out of business in 6 months." The doorbell rang again. 2 Metropolitan Police detectives. "Miss Harrington," the older one said, "we need to talk about municipal contract irregularities. We have a search warrant." Patricia looked around her room, filled with evidence, witnesses, and cameras broadcasting her humiliation. "How?" she whispered to David. "How did you orchestrate this?" David stood, adjusting his uniform with dignity. "Simple, Miss Harrington. You completely underestimated me because you couldn't see beyond your prejudices. To you, I was just another black gardener, invisible, ignorant, disposable." He picked up his bag, walking to the door. He paused to nod to the other men, who would finally get justice. "The irony is, if you'd ever truly known me, you'd have discovered I was the last person in the world you should have chosen as an enemy." As detectives searched and the broadcast continued, one question hung. Would a woman who built walls of prejudice finally learn true strength comes from the invisible? Or would arrogance prevent her from accepting the lesson? 6 months later, David Thompson sat in his new office in Canary Wharf, looking at the London skyline. Director of Investigative Journalism at the London Chronicle. Triple salary, deserved recognition. The Harrington story was a national landmark on racial discrimination and abuse of power. 3 universities offered him chairs to teach journalism. His book, Invisible by Design: How the Elite Perpetuate Racism, was a 16-week bestseller. Across town, Patricia Harrington walked through the empty halls of what remained of Harrington Tech. Only 12 of her 87 properties remained after lawsuits. Criminal investigation led to 3 charges: tax fraud, bribery, systematic racial discrimination. Mr. Miller used his settlement to start a gardening company, hiring only discrimination survivors. Mr. Davies returned to nursing school. Dr. Thorne expanded her practice, specializing in racial discrimination. David smiled, reading a letter from a young black male journalist, fired after investigating corruption. "Your story gave me courage," he wrote. "I'm following in your footsteps." That afternoon, his phone rang. Sarah Green. "David, you won the Pulitzer Prize." Leaving his office, David passed Harrington Tech's former headquarters. A "For Rent" sign hung in the doorway. Empty rooms. An empire built on prejudice, gone. Patricia had used her power to make black men invisible. This invisibility allowed David to observe, document, and expose her corruption without suspicion. True revenge, David learned, wasn't just destroying those who hurt him. It was using that destruction to build something greater, a legacy of justice that would impact lives long after Patricia Harrington's name was forgotten. 3 blocks away, in a modest apartment, Patricia watched the news. David received an honor at City Hall. She wondered how she could have been so blind. The answer was simple. People like Patricia could never see beyond their own prejudices. This limitation made them vulnerable to those they underestimated. If this story inspires you, subscribe. Sometimes, the best revenge isn't bringing them down to your level, it's rising so high they become irrelevant.